Hello everybody, welcome to another Sonic Lab. We've got Ilya here from Riga in Latvia, Gamechanger Audio. How you doing?
Doing great, nice to see you, Nick.
Yeah,
Thank
excellent.
You so much. Thanks for having me.
That low rumbling you can hear in the background is the plasma voice. We're going to do a couple of videos here. Plasma voice is the focus of the first one, so stay tuned for the other one, which will be on the pedals as well. So you've got a sequence running here, right?
Yeah, this is just, I brought 3 plasma voices and yeah, just wanted to kind of show off all the stuff it can do and, you know, just also bit of a create some sort of electricity music. Try at least give it a shot. So here, this is with some effects from the auto pedals.
Nice. That'll transition through things. Excellent. So we've got 3 distinct rhythms or 3 distinct parts going on here. And am I right in thinking the plasma voice has multiple engines, so you can kind of run different sort of sonic characteristics on each one, right?
Yeah, that's correct. So the idea behind the plasma voice, it's we wanted to explore everything that's possible with our kind of high voltage oscillator that we developed. So it's a self-contained synthesis voice, and it has a system of banks and engines. So there's 7 different like stylistical banks, and every stylistic bank contains 7 variations on an engine. That's, for example, here, this voice here was on the bass bank, and I was using the engine number 5, right? And this one I was using more as a percussive kind of element, and this one was on the static bank.
Right, which was getting kind of quite crazy in noise.
Essentially, like we are known for this plasma tube that we developed years ago as a guitar pedal, and then also we have that plasma distortion effect out as a collaborative module with Synth called the Plasma Drive, and we also have it as a rack unit for like studio applications. So that's the Plasma Rack. So at the core of that is this idea of like sending, like boosting audio signal up to 3, 4, and 5,000 volt discharges and sending that signal across 2 electrodes through a xenon gas environment.
Right.
So you can think of it essentially as if you cut the cable in half and create a small gap between the cable ends. If you start increasing the amount of current, it's going to start trying to jump across.
Right.
So the xenon gas and this kind of like enclosed tube environment is what makes that arc possible without that much resistance.
And that's what's generating the basic wave form.
So as the signal, as you're sending signal across that channel, so to speak, the arc, we're using a new signal pickup, like an electromagnetic specially designed pickup that collects the electromagnetic emissions from the arc as it travels. So that's the crazy aha thing that we kind of created all those years ago. So and we've been using it in all possible configurations, like I mentioned earlier, as a signal kind of distortion device. Right. But what's happening here with the plasma voice is that the plasma distortion has been known to used a lot with drum machines and all kinds of synthesizer sounds and so on, because it produces these electrical effects and so on. And also there's lots of electrical...
It's just sort of chaotic. There's a slight chaotic nature to it, isn't it? I mean, even the sort of the bass line has a sort of crackling aliveness to it, right?
It is true. Like it's a live kind of system. So we're listening to actually electricity moving.
Doing stuff.
Obviously, that's it's a bit of it's a bit of poetic interpretation because everything is electricity moving.
Sure, gotcha.
But in this case, this is kind of a step closer to this, to harnessing the raw sound of electricity. At first, we thought maybe it's going to be a drum machine, maybe it's going to be just a sparkle effects generator, but we've managed to create these engines which essentially send sparks across the said electrode gap, like this electrical discharge tube. So it's sending sparks across from one end to another at an audio rate and applying all sorts of different envelopes on top of that.
Well, I heard because there was some filtering going on in there as well. So there's analog filter in the voice too, yeah?
Yeah, so the besides the innovative high voltage oscillator system, there is analog drive and analog EQ on the output stage, and there's an analog multi-mode filter with a resonance control as well. So these are center indent pots, and when the filter slider is on the center part, the filter is wide open. Yep. If I remove it, if I take it down, it starts cutting off. In this case, it's configured as a low pass.
You've got dual modes.
Yeah, and then if I go up, then it takes a fraction of the time parameter to create an envelope. So,
and that's sort of effectively envelope depth as you go up, and just general cutoff as you go down.
Yeah, and so this is the just closed down filter.
It's lovely. I mean, because I'm a big fan of actually introducing a certain element of noise into a raw waveform, because you get that sort of slight chaotic and it's hard. It makes it just a bit more interesting to listen to. So this has got that in bundles. Yeah,
it has that kind of built-in sort of, because even you could say that every individual voice is slightly different, because I'm not trying to I'm not trying to create some kind of magical lingo or something, but it's true that the pressure and the configuration within each tube is slightly different.
Right. So
obviously they sound close enough to each other, but every engine sounds every engine sounds slightly differently on each particular plasma voice unit. But you can do pretty much the compensation.
Right, with the EQs.
With the EQs.
So is every engine designed to be pitch, or are there differences between the engines for sort of subtractive?
Okay, so basically let me show you so here's the base engine, right? So every engine has there's the time parameter which determines the envelope.
Yeah. So each engine has a certain curves and certain parameters that make sense for that engine, right? Okay.
Exactly. So that's the time parameter. Usually, So for example, there is a bank of sounds called block sounds, and those have much shorter, rapid envelope curves built in. So here's the modulation slider. For example, all of these sliders are bipolar. So for example, let me show you what the mod slider does on this bass sound again. So on the positive side, it does like a detune thing. And if we... So I'm just using the manual EQ.
Yeah, just to bring the track. That's nice.
So for example, like what I like about the voice a lot is that you can kind of approach it a little bit like as a guitar, as an instrument. Like you don't always have to use the filter to take something off.
You can
just
use the tone.
use the tone of it. So
it's got a different character.
If I want a bass sound,
you could boost the bass. Yeah.
But if I want to take this bass sound and destroy it and use it for something else, I can bring it up 4 octaves and remove all the bass.
Right.
You know what I mean?
In the opposite direction of the mod, what's going on there?
So let me just drop the octave back down. So now it's a different, more chaotic kind of modulation.
Yeah.
And now this is the harm knob. Harm is a new piece of terminology that we invented for this. It's a combination of it has multiple meanings like harmonization, harm as in damage, or harmonic saturation.
Right. Okay.
So
depending on the engine.
Depending on the engine,
right,
yes,
okay.
You can choose. In this case, I believe the bass engines, like it works to create a harmony. So when you turn the harm down, it creates a 5th drop, I think, or like some kind of sub drop.
Yeah, that's cool.
And that's a different bass engine. That's another different bass engine.
So they've all got quite different characteristics.
They have like their own kind of sweet spots dialed in and so on.
Are all of these parameters CV controllable? So that I see you've got an input for each one, so you can actually also modulate them per engine as well.
Perfect. So exactly like, so for example, this is the flux slider, and flux is the electrical nature of the kind of sound.
Right.
So it has to do with reducing or adding voltage to each sound. Okay. So for example, this bass sound here, when the flux is in the middle position, it's at 0 essentially. By increasing flux, it kind of like juices it up full of that electrical
makes it more uncontrollable.
And then we can use the filter to, maybe get rid of some of that if we want to. And then if I turn the flux down, usually what we've tried to do is to make sure that it starts kind of producing a voltage starve. So essentially, when the flux is down, it's a voltage starve, and here it's a voltage oversaturate.
Oh, okay.
In most cases.
Can you modulate the engines and the banks and the presets?
Yes, we can modulate everything. So for example, now I've got, what is this? This guy here is going into flux. I'm going to just randomize this. So you can see that the slider is lighting up.
So you're just sending modulation voltage.
Each of these sliders has an input here, and there's a attenuverter on top. So that means negative modulation or positive modulation and so on, which is cool. And for example, we can do another channel maybe on the filter or something. So this one will go in the filter, and I'll do it to the negative side. And
all right, so you got
just an LFO or something, for the filter. And then for the positive side, it's going to start opening it up towards the filter envelope side.
Right. Okay.
And the cool thing about this is that like each there's 5 CV inputs. And I can hold this here and just attenuate all CV inputs at once, like this. So now there's
nothing happening, but then you can bring
all signal is attenuated all the way down, and then I can gradually introduce everything in together. So that way I don't have to you know, kind of physically change the position of the knobs.
I love the sound of that one. I mean, in the room, that's got so much sub.
Let's move on to the next voice.
Yeah,
maybe.
I was going to say.
Let's leave that bass guy alone for a second. So you were asking about whether it's possible to modulate between the pitches, between the engines.
Right.
And that's one of the things that I was doing in that performance. So I just have the voice 2 soloed now. So now this is just these individual things. So this is, for example, the drum
Sounds
engine.
like a sort of bass drum type of.
Yeah. So this is the drum bank, engine number 3. We can switch to engine number 2.
Right.
So there's in the drum bank, for example, the mod is the pitch modulation, the pitch envelope. So for example, and now what we can do is like we can do every other step, we're going to move it to a snare sound. So it's moving one like engine.
And you're just sending it some specific MIDI note, which there's a mapping.
I'm just sending it one note, and so there's a method to this, which is essentially like if I send a D or an E note or an F note
then
into it, then it changes the engines one by one, and then if I send a new octave, then it changes the bank.
Okay, so yeah, easy to understand.
So there's a simple enough way.
This gives you a basic rhythm.
But the best thing is not to try to understand this. The best thing to do is definitely to just send some kind of inappropriate madness signal into it. So, for example, I'm not going to go away from this neat kind of kick snare thing.
Yeah.
I'm just going to screw this up. And now we are jumping between 49 of the different engines that are in the module. So this sounds starting to sound cool.
Yeah. I like
so
that.
I'm just going to increase the BPM just for the sake of this. Now let's try some effects. Off an octave. Shorter.
More, and that's got more envelope. But
Just going to increase the flux.
it's interesting because it's not distortion. It sounds, but it's chaos. It's
I'm going to drop it all the way down now. See what happens. So this is the kind of stuff that I really personally like a lot, which is this
sort of glitch, isn't it?
but it doesn't have that Nintendo glitch. You know what I'm saying? Like
it's not.
It's kind of more like electric. Yeah, it's
Electricity.
Yeah. So I'm going to let's try doing this, which is also cool. Drop the BPM way down, and do long decays for these glitchy sounds. I'm gonna open the filter.
Great way to make some samples as well, I'd imagine. Yeah. I really like the. I don't know if the camera's picking it up there, but I'm like sort of mesmerising on the actual the plasma there. It's sort of you can see the
If
sort
you're
of
in the natural,
hertz.
this is not the natural like environment. You know, like you have
Turn the lights off.
curtains drawn. You know, in the bunker, then these lights become really mesmerizing. So this is cool stuff. So for example, now I'm just going to select all of these steps in the mod page like this. I'm just going to change to something else.
I mean, that sounds great for percussion stuff. I mean, the first voice you've got in here was playing something a bit more pitched and sort of alongside the bass line. That's nice.
Yeah, sorry.
Nice.
So I mean, and the first voice. So I was using it. I think the idea was that it's the melodic voice. So
right.
Maybe I'll mute those two voices now and show you voice number 1. So now it's on the pluck engine.
And you've got lots of ratcheting going on in the sequence above.
This is the ratchet. The ratchet is coming from the accents, which is a good segue.
Okay.
Okay, so there's 7 different types of accents to choose from. For example, you can go into this menu, and since it's all based around the number 7, right? There's 7 different types of accenting. So right now we're on the 7th one, which is called burst. So every time the module receives an accent, like a trigger into the accent input,
it lengthens the gate. Is that what's happening? Or is it?
it kind of creates its own ratchet.
So again, I mean, the accents almost have their own dedicated sub-engines.
Yeah,
Right,
yeah.
okay, so yeah.
So for example, this is the accent in burst mode for this sound. But if we change it to a, let's say, a different... So you can see that it behaves differently.
Yeah.
Differently. So in the end, yeah, you can be very precise and methodical and like deliberate about what you want to dial in. For example, if you want a snare sound, then you just know that 4/4 is the snare sound,
Right,
snare
okay.
engine.
So once you
and
get
I actually think it's a really good snare engine. But of course, that's maybe not the main point of
Right.
getting snare sounds out of this module. The cool thing is when you like do a strange accent or strange something. For another one of my favorite accent modes is the duck.
Okay.
Which is built-in kind of side-chaining effect.
Yes.
So like we can do that on the bass, I think. So the modulation off. So now I'm going to send. So every time it receives a trigger,
So it's just pulling the...
it reduces it. I can hold this button here, take the level all the way down, increase it.
So you've got the amount of attenuation.
Maybe you can restart this kick thing, see if it works out.
So these, I mean, the engines are what are recalls. There's not memories in here to save the positions of the sliders and whatnot.
No.
But you do get.
You do get to
save your bets, but you've got the engines that you can your starting points, which are fixed points, I guess. Right?
Yeah, I guess there's like you can do everything you want with MIDI because there's a MIDI input here, and all
okay.
parameters are like CC-able. Like there's addresses for pretty much all parameters.
Oh, right, neat.
And you can do, and the converter thing also comes in the box and so on.
Right.
So you can do that, and but for like a real life scenario, I think most likely you're gonna be jamming it out. So what I like about the ducking engine is that, for example, I do sometimes like I like doing the kind of rhythmical stuff and so on, and I've gotten rid of I don't like it saved me a lot of space. For example, I don't have to build my own like ducker anymore and so on. So that's like this is so I can change the shape of the and the timing of it to match my tempo. And now the level, which is pretty convenient. If I change the tempo, it doesn't know how to intelligently adjust everything. But I can just
Interesting.
the level. And now I'm changing the shape. This was a square, duck shape. Now it's going to be a curved, like. So now I can go deeper. And like just for the fun of it, let's unmute now voice number 1, see what happens, what's happening there. Okay, why not?
Excellent. So, I mean, these are available now, aren't they? You can buy them directly. All good stockists should have them, right?
Yeah. So we should have done this a long time ago, but yeah, the Plasma Voice, this is just, we really wanted to shine a light on the Plasma Voice on your channel, because this is a place where we know we can get into these details. There are some more additional details that I didn't cover now, but I think this was deep enough.
There's plenty, yeah.
Come see us at Superbooth. We'll be making music on a 6x6, no, it's like a 6-voiced Plasma Voice system.
Nice.
To come together with the motor synth as our pad generator and the newly released, newly announced motor pedal is going to be there as well. So check out our booth at Superbooth, and I hope you come see us there as
Brilliant,
well.
we certainly will. Thank you very much, Ilya. Brilliant. We'll probably play out with a bit more action from the Plasma Voice. Thanks very much for watching.